Hello, everyone. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this amazing event. My name is Kris Howard, and I'm the head of AWS Developer Relations for Asia Pacific. And I'm here today to talk to you about how I think we can embrace equity through my favorite form of thought leadership, public speaking. So I'll just get my little slides up there. Now, to tell you a little bit about myself, I've been at AWS for about 5 years now. As I said, I was a solutions architect manager first, and now I head up the developer relations team. I've been speaking at tech events, meetups, and conferences for more than 10 years now, all around Asia Pacific and Europe. I help organize a meetup group here in Sydney called the Sydney Technology Leaders. I've been doing that for a while. I've dabbled in podcasting and Twitch streaming. And I've spoken at some really, really great events over the years. And I think a lot of times people look at me and they think that this just comes obviously very naturally to me. But what I wanted to impress upon you is that this actually was a long journey to get to where I am now. And it's one that you can actually do yourself. And so I thought I would tell you a little bit how I got to where I am. As you can probably tell from my accent, I did not grow up in Australia. I actually grew up in the United States. And when I graduated from uni in the late 90s, all I really knew was that I wanted to move overseas and I wanted to make my career in technology. And so I got a job in London in the dot-com boom, building websites. It was a fantastic time to be in tech. You know, we really felt like we were building the future, working really hard, of course. I met an Australian boy and, early in the 2000s, moved with him. He's now my husband, back to Australia, which is how I ended up here. By then I was a PHP developer. I was building backend systems. I was doing a lot in Joomla and Drupal and WordPress. And the thing is, though, I didn't really interact with anyone outside of my colleagues in tech. I didn't go to meetups. I didn't know what a meetup was. I definitely didn't do any public speaking back then. And in fact, I was usually the only woman on any of the tech teams that I was in. I never really saw people in tech who looked like me. And oftentimes it was a little bit lonely. And then one day, it was about 10 years in, it was probably 2009, I somehow found out about this meetup group that was starting in Sydney called Girl Geek Dinners. And this concept was so interesting to me, but also so scary. I actually didn't want to go on my own. I was so shy back then. I actually got 2 girlfriends with me and dragged them along. And we had the most amazing time. I loved it. I walked into a room of 70 women developers. I'd never experienced that before. And if you've never been in a room where everyone looks like you, it's you know what I'm talking about. All of you do. It's just really life-changing. It took me 3 years to work up the nerve to actually give a talk for them. But I gave my first talk at Girl Geek Dinners Sydney. I got involved with the group. I helped them run their first all-women hackathon, did that for several years. That's a picture of me with some of the women in the group there. And that gave me some confidence. I started speaking at more meetups. In 2015, I got invited to speak at my first web developer conference here in Sydney. And that gave me so much confidence that I actually applied to work at an Australian startup called Canva that some of you might have heard of. So I was at Canva pretty early in their journey. And it was while I was at Canva that I actually got the opportunity to go to Manila, to go to the Philippines, where I achieved a massive life goal. That's right. I had my birthday with Jollibee. I actually really loved working with our team in the Philippines, and I still have a lot of friends. I'm very excited to come and hopefully visit you maybe later this year. But so I worked at Canva. I was speaking at more and bigger events. And what I found is the more speaking I did, the bigger events I did, the more invitations I was getting. And soon I got invited to start speaking at international conferences in Asia Pacific. And that's really what put me on the radar for AWS. So it was in 2018 that AWS reached out to me and I joined in the solutions architecture team and then eventually joined DevRel. So really, I owe it all, my entire career, to public speaking, to the friendships and the community that I made. And I really challenged myself to get out of my comfort zone. And that never would have happened without people like Shell, like Karina, like Jen, like Raphael, people who make these opportunities for others. And so I just really want to thank them for everything they do for our community. And I really want to urge you to try and take advantage of these opportunities for yourself, because I know from firsthand experience how great an impact this can have on your career. Okay, so I've told you about public speaking. I'm going to tell you why I think public speaking is so important for you to develop, to upskill, and to take your career to the next level. So first off, It'll help you improve your communication skills, obviously. You need to be able to convey an idea to someone else and make sure they can understand it. I struggle a lot sometimes, especially communicating with people for whom English isn't a first language. And it's forced me to be more deliberate about the words I choose and to make sure I'm going slow enough and I'm really getting my message across. So it will help you. It'll help you with your communication. It'll also boost your confidence. There is nothing like the endorphin rush you get after you come off stage of giving a tech talk. It's amazing. I love it so much. And I think the more you do it, the more confident you will sound, and you will find that carries over into other aspects of your life and your career. It'll help you develop critical thinking skills. You know, you'll learn to approach the way you put a talk together, the way you construct an argument, the way you think about what sort of a journey are you going to take the audience along as you put your talk together. It's really going to improve the way you structure your communication and the way you build an argument and the way you persuade someone else of your pitch. It's going to help you grow your career and gain internal visibility. For me, when I was on a development team, I started putting up my hand to be the one to actually run our showcases, to actually demonstrate the product for our users. And that started getting me more opportunities. It started putting me in front of senior leadership. I started volunteering to represent our team at all hands. So take advantage of these internal opportunities if you have them in your company. It's really going to get you, access to people outside of just your team. It can also help you build a reputation as an industry thought leader. You know, I have a lot of connections on LinkedIn, and 95% of them are through the public speaking that I've done. Someone's going to connect with me afterwards, and I've gotten great opportunities. I've learned from people. I've found mentors through this. I've been invited to speak all around the world. So it can really help you grow your career outside of your own company too. You can expand that professional network. As I said, LinkedIn is great for that, but also by speaking at events and meeting peers, meeting people that used to be your heroes, and now you're on stage with them as a peer. I can't tell you what that does for your confidence. And lastly, travel. If you like to travel the world as I do, speaking is a great way to get free travel. A lot of these conferences will actually pay for you to go there. So if you love to see different parts of the world, look for CFPs. Those are calls for proposal, and put yourself out there. There's a lot of resources that can help you learn how to write an abstract and how to put a talk together. Oh, and of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, on International Women's Day, there are so few women on stage at tech events. So really, this is one way we can embrace equity. It's scary sometimes, I know, especially if you're not as confident with it. But by putting ourselves out there, we're going to make it normalized for there to be women at tech events. I think that's so important for us to do and show the true diversity of our amazing community. So hopefully I've convinced you. Now, just to give you a little tip on where you can practice, as I said, check in your company first. See if there are internal events. Maybe you can start to put your hand up a little bit more at some of your team meetings. There's also a famous international group called Toastmasters that you could check out. There are Toastmasters chapters all around the world, and they help you learn to be a better public speaker. Then, of course, there are meetups. Talk to Shell, talk to Jen, talk to everybody who's put this wonderful event together. Like every meetup that I know, and I know as an organizer, they're crying out for speakers. So it doesn't have to be an AWS meetup. You know, there are lots of meetups out there, and they would love to have you talk. Even just do a lightning talk, a 5-minute lightning talk is a great way to just get your first experience. And then, of course, conferences. My pro tip for conferences, go to a meetup that records you. It's great if you have a video somewhere on YouTube that you can include when you apply to a conference to actually show them you speaking, so they can see, oh, actually this woman knows what she's doing. So try and get a video of yourself if at all possible. Look, I don't want to take up too much more of your time here, okay? But I have an article on LinkedIn which has more tips about getting started with public speaking. So please check that out. Also, you can reach out to me. I'd love to give you feedback on your conference idea. And I really want to wish you all a wonderful rest of International Women's Day, all right? I know you have some amazing talks coming up. I know you've got some other AWS people speaking. And I just wanted to thank again all of the organizers for putting this together. You create opportunities for everyone else and help them uplift their careers. And I want to inspire all of you to take advantage of it, okay? So happy International Women's Day. Enjoy the rest of the day. And thanks again for having me.